Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video featuring sacrifice patterns. And for those that are new to pattern recognition, basically you want to do a set of problems multiple times. So you pick a set of problems, puzzles, solve those nice and slow the first time, then you go through them multiple times until you are able to start remembering them more and more quickly, and store those into your long-term memory by going over them multiple times, and then you can review them in the future just for a way to brush up on that type of puzzle, or try to remember them again if you forgot those. All right, here we go. I'm going to try and do 10 of these. I have it set from 1,000 to 2,000 on the rating, so maybe a mix of easier ones and more difficult, but they're all sacrifices. So we just attacked, or at some point we attacked with this bishop, and the king had just run away to the corner here. How do we win? Well, you know that it's a sacrifice involved here, so that should help you. Take a look, pause at any time. And yeah, so pattern recognition, you want to try and solve puzzles over and over regularly, and you'll start to recognize more and more patterns. And then it's like a shortcut. You'll see something and kind of instinctually know what to do without having to calculate as much. All right, so we go here. Sacrificing the rook. The king will be forced to capture, and then we can follow up with the queen here, delivering the mate. So rook sacrifice and queen mate here, because the bishop is covering the g8 square. All right, on to the next problem. What do we have here? It looks like a pawn has delivered a check and the king runs to the edge of the board on h2. How do we continue here? All right. Well, what do we have here? If you're trying to solve problems, a good way to start is look for checks, captures, and threats in that order, as checks are the most forcing. So definitely you may want to start with those. All right, the problem is we have to watch what we do, because there could be a checkmate here, and that's a good pattern. You attack the king with the queen covers all these squares here, here. The only ones that it does not cover are those two here and here. But the rook would cover that one, and the pawn would cover that one. So whatever we do, it has to be forcing, otherwise we're about to get mated. Okay, and this is a sacrifice. A sacrifice, puzzle. So we could look for checks, sacrifice the rook here maybe. If the queen goes here or here, it'll just be captured. I don't really see much with that. So maybe sacrifice the rook. If the pawn captures, which it would be forced to because the king is in check, well, that could open up this line. The queen could swoop in here, deliver a check. Then what? The king may get trapped, because we could threaten to swing over here or here. I think that works, so I'm going to just go ahead and do it. now we can just take. It looks like we have to, because the queen could come up here and defend that if we just go here. So I think we have to take with check. Now the king would be forced to go here. That gives us time to move here and then deliver a mate up there. So king is forced to go here. We go here. The king goes there. And we deliver a mate there because of that pawn. All right, on to the next problem. We have a pawn pushing forward, attacking our center pawn. There's also maybe a threat of chasing our bishop. All right, we're looking for possible sacrifice. Maybe we could do the h7 sacrifice here. So whenever you have a bishop, a knight that can jump in with check, and a queen that could deliver a check, or maybe not a check, but jump along this diagonal, it's always a good idea to take a look at that. So if we go here, if they don't capture, then we just grab an extra pawn, or do we? Because, well, we would be on the move, then we could just go ahead and capture that if we wanted to, or defend it. So material-wise, we have 5, 8 pawns, so no material has been traded yet. So let's look at this. We capture. Now what if they accept our sacrifice? They take, we jump our knight up here. If the king retreats back to g8, well, then we can bring our queen up here, threaten a mate. So that's a possibility. What is another option after capture, take, check? What if the king comes forward here? Well, then we could possibly bring our queen up to here with a discovered attack. So I'm going to try this. And, that's crazy. The best move is to just capture like that. And then we're just ahead by the queen. So let's pull that up on analysis real quick and just take a quick look. All right, so capture, king captures, knight to g5. Instead of the queen taking, what is the best move? It looks like king back to g8 is best. So if we go there, we're going to have queen jumping up, getting ready to mate in 1 here. So that has to be taken care of. And it looks like the best thing to do once again is give up your queen. But if your opponent doesn't do that and plays that move, well, then you have this capture first, bringing the king back to the corner, then you check. So this is a great pattern to know. I would definitely take a double look at this problem, this pattern here of sacrificing. So now what do you do? Well, now you can go queen to h7. The king has to go to f8. You check. King is forced to go to e7 and then mate, because the pawn is preventing the king from running. Also, the queen is covering that as well. So here's a good pattern with the queen. The queen covers that, that, and that, but not these 4 squares here. Now, fortunately, all those are either occupied or the pawn is covering that one. Okay, on to the next problem. What do we have here? bishop is just captured on g7. Black's turn to move. What should black do here? All right, we're looking for a sacrifice. Okay, hopefully you found this pattern already. And that's why you want to work on pattern recognition, because sometimes if you recognize the patterns, you don't really have to think much or calculate as much. It's almost like a shortcut in chess. So if we notice, we have a queen lined up on their queen and king. We're attacking their queen and the king is guarding. What if we could pull that king away from guard duty? How could we do that? Well, you want to look for checks, captures, and threats, before you make a move. Checks first, as they're most forcing. And here we have a check and a capture at the same time. Pause if you need to think about it further. If not, let's try to take this pawn. And what are the king's options? The king will be in check, and he can only move away to the A file here or here, or capture the rook, but then he'll no longer guard the queen. And now we're just ahead. We have 5 pawns against 4 and a queen versus rook and bishop. Okay, on to the next problem. Knight has just captured a pawn and is threatening to capture another, leaving a large 3-pawn majority on the queen side, or, well, 3 passed pawns once this pawn is gone. So, what can we do here? If we're looking for a sacrifice, how do we do that? Now we have this pawn here ready to run, but as soon as it moves up here, the king will be able to move beside it and guard the queening square. So that doesn't look so good for us. Do we start pushing our pawns forward, try to get another pawn here? Then here, the king can't capture or our pawn will run, but the king, oh, maybe that works because the king can't go here or here right now. So if we go there, now our bishop's under attack, but do we have time to give a check first? If the king takes and we go here, this could be captured, but then I think our pawn is unstoppable. So yeah, they'll capture our bishop, but then we'll gain a queen, and our queen should be able to go in here and start annihilating these pawns. And their king is pretty open. All right, well, on to the next 5. I'll try and do 5 more problems. So queen is attacking our unprotected rook, but it's our turn. We're looking for a sacrifice. How should we do that? Oh, okay. I think I've seen this pattern before. So, another example of trying to do these pattern recognition puzzles regularly, you'll notice things more quickly sometimes, not always. And if it's something you have trouble with, work on that puzzle, or that type of puzzle. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking. We go here, forcing the king to capture. Then our queen follows up with a check. The king will have to run back to where it was, but then we can capture here because our bishop is covering that. So check, check, and mate. All right, on to the next 4 problems. Here we go. King was in check and runs, but it looks like we're going to be able to sacrifice. At any time, pause if you need to think, of course. If not, here we go. What if we capture here? The bishop is covering that, of course, so the king can only take. Then we bring the other rook over. So we deliver check again, and the only thing that can be done is to block with that. All right, we need to see if this works. Now the problem also is that there's a threat of check. If our knight captures, does that, well, no, not even that. We don't even have to look at that. The queen can go here and just deliver a mate immediately. So we have to make sure this works. We take, they take, we bring our other rook over. The only thing they can do is block. We capture, delivering check. The king would have to move to here. And then what? We would have to check again with the rook here. King would take. Our queen slides over, delivering check. The king moves, and we deliver the mate. Okay, I know that's a lot. Try and calculate that out in your head. If you're ready, here we go. All right, we bring the other rook over. They block. Take, we check, the queen comes over. Now we check, and this time it's mate because the queen is covering here. Now whenever the queen lands on a square that is one of the corners around the king, here, 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 or here, whenever the queen lands there, it generally, now this pawn is blocking it, but it'll usually cover the 2 sides and the diagonal through the middle. So the only thing that will not be covered are here and here, and that bishop is covering that. So this is a good pattern to know. And make sure the queen's protected, of course. So the queen's protected by the pawn. The queen covers here, here, and here. And normally it would cover here, but the pawn is doing that. All right, 3 more to go. I hope you're doing well with these problems. As always, feel free to leave comments and let me know what you think. If you have any opinions, any questions, I always enjoy hearing what you have to say. All right. What do we do here? The queen has just marched up to help defend the king side. Now, normally you want to look for checks first. We could go there. And the king doesn't even have to take that. He could just slide in behind that pawn and use that pawn for cover. So maybe that pawn move wouldn't be that great. We don't want to go here. Or if we capture, their queen can capture. Then we would capture, king captures. If our rook slides over, the king could escape, and we would be down in material, I believe. We have, what, 5, 6 pawns, but that one would be gone if we trade up here. They have, what, 4 pawns? So right now material's even. We have 6 pawns, or no, it's not. Hold on. I gotta practice my counting. We have 4, 5, 6 pawns versus 5 by our opponent. Okay. But they have an extra rook versus our bishop. So they are slightly ahead. What should we do here? And what threats do they have? I don't see any immediate threats. And we're looking for a sacrifice, and how should we do that? What's the best way to sacrifice? What if we went here and just blocked that rook, then threatened to move here and take it? But I don't know, that's not really a sacrifice. Okay, so if we're looking for a sacrifice, oh, okay, the rook sacrifice. So hopefully you looked at this rook. Pause if you want to think more, but what if we just go here attacking the queen? If the queen takes, then we mate. So it looks like that works. And now they can't even take our rook because they are pinned by our queen. All right, 2 more problems to go. Let's finish this up. We have a battery being created here, maybe for the defense of their second rank. But what do we have? All right, we have a bishop, a queen-bishop battery. We have a knight that could jump in here. Maybe not because it's pretty defended, but we have 3 attackers. Queen, 2 bishops. Maybe the knight could do something. They have 2 defenders on their queen side over here where the king is. So if we look at checks first, what if we go there? Our opponent would be forced to run up here. And what would our follow-up be? The knight could maybe check. All right, and that's where it gets complicated. So if we go there, the king would be forced to move. Once we go here, delivering check, the king could just take the bishop. But then there's a discovered attack by our queen once the knight that would be here moves. So we could move back. We'd have to deliver a check. We'd have to go here, deliver a check maybe. All right, so maybe, what if we go here first, sacrificing a bishop? I don't know if that works. If they take, then what? Well, we could go here. If the king moves, there's not much we can do. So I think our original idea is probably better. So once again, pause if you really want to look at the problem more. If not, I'm going to try this move, forcing the king into the corner. Then our knight can jump in here delivering a check. If the king captures our bishop, we could check again going here with a double discovered attack. But our king could run. Okay, this is where it's getting difficult. I go here, he goes here, my knight checks, he takes the bishop. We go back to here, delivering a check, and the king could move here, attacking that knight, but our queen can deliver a mate. Okay, because this bishop. All right. Check. 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 And mate. All right, the final problem. Are you ready to solve this final problem? Here we go. What is the problem? Our opponent had a knight that was under attack and moves, counterattacking our bishop. What should we do? We could just take that knight if we want to, attacking their queen. Let's see. Now, we're looking for a sacrifice because that is what all these puzzles are about in this video. So, maybe we have an h7 bishop sacrifice, but black is, or not h7, a sacrifice of the bishop on the h pawn here with black to move. So, if we go there and the king captures, we jump up here with check, backed up by our bishop, and the king moves back, our queen can threaten a mate. The rook would have to move, and then we could trap the king. But if we go here, king captures, we check. What if the king comes forward to here? Well, sometimes when that happens, you can bring the queen in and threaten a discovered attack on the king, a discovered check. But, maybe they would have time to go here and attack our queen if we did that. So maybe we would have to activate our rook and push this pawn up the board. I'm thinking this is what they want, this bishop sacrifice here. So I'm going to try that. There we go. We continue the attack. And once again, they just give up their queen. So, we would just be winning. So let's take a look at the analysis. All right. So here we have knight to c4. We sacrifice the bishop. Now if the opponent does not take and just goes to h1, well, then what? I mean, I guess we might as well look at that as well. If the king just goes here, the computer gives the best move as being what? Knight to g4 apparently. And then g3 could trap the bishop in. What if you did that? Just attacked. Well, now they're saying queen to h4, or, well, you have this, and the queen can jump up to h4 and deliver a mate. So if I go back one, the best move apparently is that to prevent the queen from jumping up to h4. But then we would have h5. What now? Knight to e5. Trying to draw this knight away. And then you could pick off the bishop. Also, they're saying king up to g2 would be all right. maybe threatening to bring a rook over and capture the two minor pieces for the rook. So h4, rook to h1. Now what? Queen to g5. Well, that might be hard to see. If you go queen to g5, what if they would attack the queen? Apparently the best move is knight to c3. Anyway, before we get too deep into this, they're saying here you should just play h3 check, king up to f1, queen, oh, take c1, okay, and then that bishop's unguarded, you could just capture that. All right, back to where we were at here. So check, and instead of the queen capturing, what if the king goes back to here? Well, now you have queen to h4. The best move is once again to take that knight. Otherwise, what? What is the option? Knight to d6 check, but you just grab the knight. Rook to d1, though, that would lead to queen to h2. King is forced to move, and then you just mate here. All right. So what are the other options? King up to g3 apparently is the best. King to g3. Queen to g5 is still the best move. And what then? f3. Huh. f3 or f4. What about, did I already look at that move? With that move, knight to e3 check. Oh, you could just block it. Knight to e3 check. Wow, and this is a mate in 3. King. Oh, the queen would have to block on g4. If the king went up to h2, then it's just a mate. Wow. If the king goes here, then what? Queen just takes and delivers a mate here. So a lot going on. So definitely, if I go back to the beginning of this, they go there. Anytime you have this bishop lined up here, the king's the only thing defending. Of course, the knight is not on f3. So if the king takes, and then you can launch the bishop, or excuse me, the knight up here checking the king, and the queen can jump along this d8 to h4 diagonal. Look for that sacrifice on h2 or h7 if it's the white pieces attacking the black pieces. All right. Well, that was the 10th problem. So let me get out of that analysis board. As always, leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.